أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين ولعنة الله الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بأبي عبد الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. As we go into our discussion for today, and the talk is about mahdism and how it's supposed to be a very positive notion which is growth promoting, and it's not alien to the human condition, nor is it an imposition. In fact, it is a product of the human surge towards completion, totally in line with what the existence is. As God has initiated this existence at large, He has initiated the being of the human kind. And similarly, He has fashioned our psychology. And through that, we yearn utmost completion. We are positive by nature. We look forward to a better tomorrow. And the thought of better tomorrow sustains us today and allows us to get through a difficult today. Instills belief in us that we can change our situation. Mahdism is all about that. It has nothing to do with any form of negativity. If negativity has crept into our thought, then that is perversion of a very noble human ethos and notion. And this negativity that has come about us in our minds is actually inconsistent with our condition. And what we find is a lot of conflict between the way in which we are and the way in which we feel we ought to be. Do you see? There is always a confusion and a conflict between human people and the religion that they follow, to the extent that it's a very uneasy relationship, and religions have to be modified. That's not the case. Religions never have to be modified. What is being modified and addressed is the human perversion, which has been given the label of a religion. On the one hand, God is a liberating factor. He liberated the people in the time of the Prophet, filled them with audacity, set them off on the path of evolution, and gave them full confidence in whatever they were, and said to them, explore the fullness of your humanity, and I am condoning that. Look at the way He did that. Today, the same God is beyond question. The God of yesterday, when He was introduced, opened Himself for interrogation, for questions. He said, the God of yesterday, if this Quran is from other than me, then there ought to be many discrepancies in there. Open your eyes, challenge me in this Quran. If you can't find discrepancy, then in that case, think about the content. If you can find discrepancies in this Quran, then in that case, reject me. That God was open to interrogation. That God was open to challenge. Today's God of Islam doesn't understand any challenge. As soon as a challenge comes about in the mind, immediately there is a religious threat that you will be flung into the pits of hell. So we are finding a very uneasy relationship today between human condition and the religion that we are following. And if we follow the religion, we find that we start to regress, whereas our condition is one of progression and evolution. Every concept has been skewed up from the top to the bottom, even the sense of piety. Think about piety the way we understand as we go into our subject. Think about piety. Piety today means people wearing rags who are abstemious, people who don't smile. What sort of piety is this? This is a deprived state of existence. The Quran says that those people who are righteous, their hearts cry out, "O Lord, give us good in this world and good in the hereafter." And Allah gives them both. Look at the well-balanced message of the Quran. Rejoice in this world, and the next world is yours as well. In Nahjul Balagha, Amirul Mu'mineen says that the pious people are those who enjoy the best fruits of this life, who share with the emperors in receiving the enjoyment of this life, and on top of that, they have a great deal more waiting for them through their own beautiful human condition through which they create their hereafter. Or have you forgotten the example of Al-Hasan Salamullah alayhi, when he was seated on his stallion wearing princely garments, and mockingly a Jewish person wearing rags came in front of Al-Hasan Salamullah alayhi, and he said, "O grandson of the Prophet, may I be permitted to ask a question?" He said, "Indeed." He said, "Your grandfather had said that this world is a place of captivity and a prison for the believer, and the hereafter is a paradise. Whereas for a non-believer, this earth is a paradise and the hereafter is a prison." Imam Hassan said, "Indeed, he had said this." He said, "Then what is this that I see? That my state is one in which I am in a prison, and your state, being a believer, is one in which you are in paradise in this world." The Imam smiled. He said, "Oh man, if only you could see what Allah has prepared for me in the hereafter, in comparison to that, you will say, 'Oh Hassan, despite having everything in this world, in comparison to what awaits you in the hereafter, this world is a prison for you.'" How beautifully he explained this. Or Imam Rada Salamullah alayhi, wearing princely garments, approached by the Sufis, mockingly telling him that your grandfathers used to wear rags and you're not abstemious. The Imam smiled. The Imam said, if the condition of the community at this present time was as it was in the time of my grandfathers, I too would have been living in accordance with the lowest common denominator amongst humanity. But today people are affluent, and I am duty bound to rejoice in the mercy and the blessings of God and to show off. This sense of poverty, sadness, gloom is nothing to do with piety. It's sheer perversion of religion. Piety is to do with the inner condition of the human being, that their hearts are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are rejoicing the world fully. When we can skew up even the smallest notions of religion, imagine if we were to open our minds and to look at the truth of what it is worth, we will see how we have messed up religion in its entirety, and why it has become such a regressive force, and why this tension in our minds. Any wonder why people get put off from religion? We constantly battle against this surge of people moving away from religion. So we bring in English speakers thinking that an English orator or a lecture will redress the balance. How nonsensical is that? There is nothing right from the very core of our religion. The whole social system is gone amiss. How can a person who comes and speaks in English redress the balance? Whatever they speak is as perverse, is as skewed up as the religion itself, whether you convey it in Urdu, English, Arabic or Persian. It doesn't make any sense. In this Islam of ours, there is no scope for enjoyment. There is no scope for leisure. We take utmost pride in our state of piety. We take resort in the fact that God has not given us anything, and that that's the destiny of God. Whereas God himself said, "You are the destiny maker." When we said to God, "Give us cure," what did God say? Did he bring a miraculous potion to cure malaria? He said, "No, you become God-like and provide the cure yourself." Didn't he? When we say, "Allahumma aghni kulla faqir," "O Lord, make needless every poor people," does he send treasures with Jibraeel? He says, "No, you become the hand of my generosity and remove poverty." The whole religion, every notion has been skewed up due to our negativity, due to our inaccurate thinking. And that's why we find this tension in religion.
Yet this religion doesn't make sense. And there is a movement outside religion. And why not? It's a very natural movement that people should leave religion when that religion is not in sync with the human reality and human condition and not in line with the properties of existence. This is exactly what is happening due to our inaccurate appreciation of religion and our imposition upon religion through our insecurities and wishful thinking. Wearing rags has nothing to do with piety. If that was the case, then Allah would have ordained it on a night when Salman, Abu Dhar, Miqdad swore that they would not partake in any of the blessings that Allah had created. They would not sleep with their spouses, nor on comfortable beds, nor would they consume meat. Immediately Allah reveals a verse, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu lima tuharrimu ma ahallallahu lakum. O you who believe, why do you make haram what Allah has made halal for you? By Allah, a person wears rag but does not have a pure heart. What sort of piety is that? And if a king like Sulaiman rejoices in the world of God and still has that purest heart, then not only is he the king of this world, he is the king of hereafter as well. The way we are going about it is extremely wrong. Mahdism is a beautiful notion. It is one generated from the core of human beings, humanity. It's generated from the core of existence itself. Let us explore it and try and understand it so that it can be useful for us, as opposed to us thinking about an eventual end that is going to come, which is sheer nonsense. By nonsense I mean it doesn't make sense. Not trying to ridicule it. It's sheer nonsense to understand that there is nothing more than the present that we have. Tell me, what past is there in this world and what future? When you analyze this accurately, you will know there is no past, there is no future. It's the absolute present here and now. Do you know this? Tell me about any past that you've had or any future. It has been nothing but the present that has been constantly unfolding. It is a ship on a sea that has been sailing. Now it is there, now it is here, now it is here, now it is here. In the next now it will be there. Do you know the stellar constellations that we see up in the sky? They are not there anymore. They might not be there anymore. Do you know this? It's been billions of years ago that they casted that light that we are seeing today. That sky, night sky, might not be there right now, but we are seeing the past of the cosmos in the present. There is nothing but the present. And today's present is unfolding into the future, and today we are seeing the future as well. In our now we are seeing the past and the future. If we can get this thing right, then we will know it's not a question of anticipating the Mahdi. It's a question of here and now. Same is the notion about the hereafter. People think we will go somewhere else. What nonsense is this? There is no somewhere else. There can never be somewhere else. If we don't find Allah here and now, there is no Allah to be found there. Don't we see this in the Quran? Allah says, he who is blind in this world will be blind in the next world. Do we not hear these verses of the Quran in which Allah says, on that day Allah will not talk with them nor look at them. If they haven't seen Allah today, they will not see Allah tomorrow. What paradise are we talking about? The paradise is one that me and you are making right now. What hell are we talking about? We are the authors of hell. I am creating my own hell. Have you not heard the anecdote of Mahlul? When he came and the Abbasid Caliph met him, he said, Mahlul, where do you come from? He said, I come from the deep pits of hell. He said, oh, it must have been hot. He said, on the contrary, there was no fire there. He said, that's odd. He said, exactly my thoughts. I asked the inmate of hell, well, where is all the fire? He said, Mahlul, there is no fire here. I said, what of the fire that has been promised? He said, the people who come here will bring their own fire and fill it here. Do you not read the Quran? وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ. Whose fuel is man and stone. The fuel is not there. How can the fire be there? We are the creators of this fire at present. We are the creator of paradise at present. There is no there in the way we understand. There is no future in the way we understand. It's the absolute present. If we can understand these notions accurately, by Allah, today's life becomes a life worthy of living. It becomes a true life, not this fantasy life, delusioned life. It's a real life. That is a life that is worthy. Me and you have a singular opportunity now. Now is my and your opportunity. In a few days' time, this opportunity will go, finish. Mine and your existence has gone for once and for all. Think about it carefully. I've opened my eyes in this beautiful world of God. What a shame that this opportunity should evade me due to my presumptuous understanding of life, in which I fail to live a proper life in my right now and here. Allah has absolute present. I'm just going to explain this once more. Allah does not have a yesterday or a tomorrow, does He? He can't. So for Allah, Adam is being created now. Adam is dying right now. Adam is being resurrected right now. Adam is in paradise right now. For Allah, everything is in the now. For me and you, similarly, everything is in the absolute now. If we can understand this, then a very glorious, meaningful world unfolds. So now, if this is the case, then we need to understand that that Mahdi that we talk about is here in the present right now. That Mahdi that will come is a product of the human movement towards completion. The human movement, so long as it doesn't complete itself, he will not come. So here and now is the opportunity for us to imbibe this Mahdi within ourselves. The same Mahdi that will appear outside us is the same Mahdi that is within us. The same Dajjal that will come outside us is the same Dajjal that is within us. He's an individual reality. He's a human reality. How can anybody not understand this? Am I not the Dajjal himself? Of course. Am I not the Mahdi himself? Of course I am. Think about it carefully what I'm saying. By God, if a person were to understand things properly, he is Gabriel, he is the Quran, he is the one who is being revealed upon. He is the beginning, he is the end, is the absolute now. If he could only understand it. Now, if we look at Mahdism, and we stated that we can analyze it at 3 levels, as those individuals and reformers who push the community forward, as that ultimate goal who's going to come, and as the general ethos within humanity. If we can understand it in that way, then we will see that that is the same struggle that is going on within me and within you. Mahdi and Dajjal are 2 sides of the same coin. They are no different. There are things that are deep within me. There are things which are the natural facets of existence. How? We'll take aid of a hadith. In the hadith of Imam Sadiq Salamullah alayhi, he states that Allah created from the right of the throne the intellect. He said to the intellect, retreat, it retreated. He said to the intellect, advanced, it advanced. On the left of the throne, he created ignorance. He said to the ignorance, retreat, it retreated. He said to the ignorance, advance, it did not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looked at the intellect and said, I have not created anything more beautiful than you. Through you I shall reward. He looked at ignorance and he said, through you I shall punish. Then he adorned the intellect with 1,000 beautiful qualities. With bravery, with nobility, with truthfulness, with sincerity, with altruism, and all the befitting qualities. Ignorance looked towards God and said, oh God, it is my twin that you have adorned. Adorn me with its like. And so Allah adorned, if we can use that word, ignorance with all the negative qualities, with fear, with lack of confidence, with the ability to want for itself and not to give away for the other. The same one who has authored intellect has authored ignorance. The same one who has authored paradise has authored hell. There are profound meanings to these realities. And then he joins them together, fuses them together, and places them within human being. Me and you have both got both the poles within us, the pole of intellect and the pole of ignorance. But ignorance, when you look at it carefully, it is actually akin to arrogance. Because arrogance is a point of stagnation, whereas intellect is a point of expansion and growth. What am I trying to say from here? That within this human community, everything is flowing and advancing and growing. There is nothing that is stopping. Everything is moving on. Now when we talk about Dajjal, we are talking about a very advanced level of intellect. It's not a fool, it's not a stupid entity, it's a very intellectual, highly advanced, highly sharpened state of mind. What do I mean by that? Mahdi and Dajjal go hand in hand all the time. Within me, within humanity, and the great individual. How? Of course, the great individual is just the good individual, Mahdi, and that the other individual is a highly sophisticated Dajjal. But what do I mean? At the instance in which Einstein split open the atom, there was a Mahdi face to it and there was a Dajjal face to it. The Mahdi face to it was to give energy, light and life to humanity at large. The Dajjal face of it was what? To coerce and to take life. Can you see? They both advance together. Both are evolving. My point in saying this is that at present we are encountering both of these equally. Within us, within our mindset, and in the way in which we exist. And if we can understand it properly, then we can make something positive out of it. Now, if we look at evolution and the way in which things are evolving, we will find that in us, as we evolve, we have ability of both to do good and the ability to do evil. And the more we have the aptitude to do good, the greater is our aptitude to do evil. Can you see that? Iblis can be the greatest angel if he wants, if he makes the switch. And Iblis, from being the greatest angel, can be the greatest demon if he makes the switch. An ordinary angel does not have the aptitude to be such a great demon like Iblis has. And an ordinary demon does not have the aptitude of becoming so saintly and such a great angel as Iblis has. A person of lower aptitude does not do much good nor evil. A person of great aptitude can switch sides, and the know-how that he has of doing good can be used equally in doing evil. And the know-how an evil person has of doing evil can be easily used to do great good. This is the reality with which me and you live, and we are constantly evolving. However, there are one or two more things that we need to clarify before we can advance this argument. And that is our inability to see the human truth. Me and you believe that we are individuals who are existing here, and we have no connection with the rest of humanity or creation. This is totally inaccurate. You see, as individuals, we don't have a sense of culture, a sense of rights, a sense of transaction and belonging. All of these notions are social notions. And a society cannot exist without individuals that comprise a society. So we have a dual identity simultaneously. We have an identity of an individual and we have an identity of the whole community. We have a destiny that is being carved as individuals, and we have a destiny that is being carved as a community. And hence we read within the Quran that people will be driven to paradise in groups and people will be driven to hell in groups because they share the same destiny. So today if a person thinks that I need to do good for myself and not for the rest of the humanity, is failing to understand that the destiny of humanity will determine his destiny. If we could awaken to that. 2, we cannot be devoid of the destiny of the rest of the humanity that is not present with us. Those that have gone in the past and those that are going to come in the future. Future meaning our present going and advancing towards that time. Quran again says that whenever a community enters into hell, it says, who has prepared this for us? And it finds that a previous community had prepared that seat for them in hell. And they would curse their sister community. Otherwise, it's not fair. Why should have Adam taken all these troubles that he took for me and you to be in such a comfortable position today? Why are we taking all this trouble that we are taking today? So that 1,000 years from now, the people who will come will be flying and exploring galaxies, whereas I want to know what it's all about. Why should I take all this trouble today for them to rejoice, when we know that we are all connected? Little steps that they took has led to this, and the little steps that we will take will lead to a very glorious coming of humanity that will come. This is the next thing we need to understand, that we are connected with the whole of the humanity at once, and the past of humanity and the future of humanity. And the Quran conveys this message very clearly. So whatever affects the entirety of the humanity will affect me. And whatever affects humanity at present will affect me as well. So if that is the case, then I begin to understand the meaning of mahdism. To bring out the best within me and within humanity at present, and create the best for the future. To manage myself and the humanity in such a way that good can predominate. If we look at the era of Mahdi when he comes in the descriptions, this is what we find. That it is not this constricted sense of Islam, but his Islam is so broad that allows a Jew to be a Jew, a Christian to be a Christian, a Muslim in the formal sense to be a Muslim, Hindu to be a Hindu, a Buddhist to be a Buddhist, but creates such a beautiful system that the souls naturally tend towards spiritual growth together with intellectual growth, and they can arrive to God. Now if that is the description of Mahdi, then that is the very description I need to create today. Within my individual being, within my community, and within Islam as a whole. That is being true to Mahdism at present. This is just exploring one facet of it. Always knowing very well that there is a balance of intellect and ignorance. I often ask myself when I curse Saddam, that what is the difference between me and Saddam? And when I think of it, there is no difference. The only difference is he was given an opportunity to act out whatever he wanted, and I am not being given the opportunity. The very fact that I can do injustice to any one of my subordinates, the very fact that I can do injustice to my children, shows that if I were to be given a greater capacity without anybody asking me, I would do injustice to humanity at large. There is no difference between me and Saddam. What delusional world am I living in? That pole of ignorance and that struggle between ignorance and intellect is taking place within me right now. It's a fact of life. This is Mahdism in action. How to balance it in a most proper way, in the way that most of humanity can come towards the good of God. You know, I was in a park in Birmingham, and I saw some of our Muslim brothers. Now may Allah forgive me for judging them through their appearance, but when I looked at their faces, I thought, these are the people who can truly go out and kill every soul without a sense of sin. And then I thought, subhanallah, this is in the fold of Islam. This is in the fold of Islam. Islam does not make a person immune from evil. No religion makes a person immune from evil. Evil and good are a part and parcel of our makeup. They will always be this spread in humanity as there is within me, within humanity at large. Now, if we have understood that, then we begin to understand one of the fundamentals of Mahdism. That good and evil are always intertwined within me, within my community, within humanity at large. The only thing that we need to do is is to learn how to manage the good so that the good prevails. And we need to understand that the greater prevalence of good ensures a better destiny for all. We cannot have this exclusivist sense of existence in which we say that we are immune as a little community, or that I am immune as an individual if I'm good. Piety actually means to bring about a situation for humanity at large, because I share in their destiny. Once I was with a Sufi master and I asked him that I'm baffled by this notion of how the collective destiny is impacting me at a personal level. He said, it's very easy. I said, how? He said, imagine that there is a parasite on the back of an animal, feeding off the animal. I said, yes. He said, so the parasite is enjoying its own destiny. I said, yes. He said, and the animal is enjoying its own destiny. I said, yes. He said, but now the animal crosses the road and is hit by a car. The animal dies, the parasite will suffer from the destiny of the animal. I said, yes, that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. That here and now, my endeavor ought to be the good for the collective humanity. That is the first thing I must bring into my mind, that my own good destiny is ensured through the goodness of humanity at large at present. And the destiny that they will create for humanity to come will in turn impact my destiny and the way in which I will be in my next life. That is the first thing we begin to understand. The second thing, that there is an evolutionary trend. In that evolutionary trend, Mahdi and Dajjal grow together hand in hand. None of them lags behind. They are both growing hand in hand. And there is a purpose for this. Imagine the story of Shaitan and Adam, or Iblis and Adam. Then the story of Habil and Qabil. Then the story of Namrud and Ibrahim. Then the story of Pharaoh and Moses. Then the story of Abu Sufyan and his likes and Abu Lahab and the Prophet of Islam. Then the story of Yazid and Al-Hussein. It's the same story. It's the same story that is going on and on and on and on and on, but in a more magnified way, because everything is evolving at every time. So the more we evolve, the greater the challenge that we face. And at times, the more obscure are the boundaries, because we have to understand within ourselves as to what is going on within ourselves, within our communities, and within our humanity. We had this conference in Zurich at one point, and in which the Muslims were cursing the Western governments and the Western systems. And I sat there baffled, and I was thinking, what's wrong with their minds? And then when it came to my turn, I said, look, in the UK, there is democracy. You have a God-given right and a state right to avail yourself of the opportunity. Rather than cursing the political system, you have a right to engage within the political process and get into parliament and address your voice your concerns and address the situation. What's wrong with you? Rather than sitting here at a distance and cursing the whole of the Western system, you can participate. No Muslim system will allow you that. Today, and if my words are highly critical, then forgive me. In the West, we become citizens. We have right of ownership, don't we? We can participate at any level of society. Our failure to participate is our disservice not only to ourselves, to our religion, and to our society, and to our community and humanity at large. But go to a Muslim country, what do you find? You can't get citizenship. You don't have right of ownership. You can't participate in any political processes. And you go to places like Dubai. There is nobody there to talk about the rights of the workers. 15 people confined to a room. From here we begin to understand that those lives become so obscure. What is deemed to be evil is actually good. And what is deemed to be good in the name of Islam is actually Dajjal in its entirety. We need to open our eyes and to see what is going on so that we can move forward. Now, in this surge forward and in our evolution, what is happening is, and I want to leave it at this point and discuss this particular point tomorrow, what is happening is that we are supposed to become more and more competent. Our incompetency should exchange for competency. It's no different from a child. A child, when it takes birth, is in the lap of the mother. But as soon as the child arrives in the lap of the mother, it begins its journey towards gaining competency. Physical, intellectual, emotional, moral. The human community is no different. Apart from the Muslims who have a very bleak view of their eschatology and the events to come, the rest of the world is moving towards competency. Today, the people who are deemed to be kafirs have explored the moon and are going to Mars will tell us about the microwave background effect of the universe, which tells us the history of the universe. The Muslim who is supposed to be a believer in God, who is supposed to be endowed with knowledge, enlightened, is the only person who has no knowledge beyond his very limited context. The rest of the world is moving on, being true to its state of mahdism. Mahdism is all about progression, all about evolution, all about changing incompetency into competency. Muslim is the only one who has remained behind due to its very bleak understanding of the world and the future, and it's very unrealistic. Think about this very, very carefully. I said this yesterday, that I curse the non-Muslim. I fall sick. I pray to Allah, oh Allah, cure me. Allah sends the same person that I've cursed to the pit of hell to provide me with my cure. What a joke. What a joke. I am saying Allah has blessed me and Allah has condemned him, but Allah has opened his treasures to that person and allowed him to explore nature, and Allah has condemned me with cancer that I cannot cure. What can be more undignified than this, that a believer gets cure from the hands of the one that he deems as enemy of God? What can be more indignified than that? Why would God indignify me in such a way? God is slapping me on my face and trying to awaken me and saying, oh fool, look at how you have misconstrued the truth. So there is evolution. At all points we are evolving. And this evolution means that incompetency changes hands with competency. But look at us today. Look at the Muslims today. Back in the day, in the time of Hafiz Assad, when I used to go to Syria, we used to find Hafiz Assad's pictures posted everywhere. In the time of Shah of Iran, the Shah of Iran's pictures were posted everywhere. In the time of Imam Khomeini's pictures were everywhere. In the time of Sayyid Khamenei, Khamenei's pictures are posted everywhere. You go to Iraq, Sayyid Sistani, do you know what we are doing? We lack total confidence. We are still in a dream world, that there are saviors for us, and that one person is savior. A king is the face of God, or a mujtahid is the face of the Prophet on the face of this earth. And hence, as a result, there is total incompetency, total reliance upon the other, and no confidence in the self, that we have to take control of our destiny and relieve our incompetency. Take charge and move towards competency at every level. We are at a stage where evolution is taking place, and we are the only people in that evolutionary cycle who has stopped. Of course, that's an impossibility, nobody can stop. Everybody is evolving, but apparently the Muslim mindset and its bleak outlook, which is totally inconsistent with the way in which human nature is, appears to be the most backward. The West that we condemn has done away with monarchy. And even if we do have monarchy here, it's constitutional monarchy, in which the monarchs are confined to laws. But Muslims cannot think beyond monarchs, beyond prophet-like figures. What we are trying to say here is, Mahdi is a human reality. that one Mahdi is in occultation. He cannot be replaced by one. He has to now be represented by the body of humanity at large. This is the greater Mahdism. It is a time now where the whole body begins to evolve in the name of Mahdi. Not that the whole body becomes stagnant, dormant, and looks towards individuals to guide them in a way that they have no confidence in themselves whatsoever. Now I'm going to point out one or two things and I'll finish today. Iraq, why did it go to the Ba'athists? Shias were the majority in Iraq, right? From the time when Allama and those grand people were there 700 or 100 years ago, Shias have been the majority. Why did Iraq go into the hands of the Ba'athists? Because of this very bleak outlook. Our Marajas at that time, they were saying that to establish the government of God is the prerogative of Mahdi, not us. Yes? And anything established by other than Mahdi is evil. Don't participate. Don't take part in the political processes, nor take any meaningful part within the governance of society. And as a result, you have a majority, yet a minority was ruling over them. It was squarely based on that outlook. Sayyid Khomeini came and redressed this. He said, no. Mahdi is a living reality. We have to create that living Mahdism within us. His own political theory, whether we agree with it or not, is another point altogether. But the fact is that Iran came under the clergy. Iraq went under the Ba'athists. This was squarely due to the political outlooks, to the worldviews. I'm not saying what the Iranians are doing is ideal or not. I'll suspend that judgment for now. In the next few lectures we'll come to Wilayat al-Faqih and see how we can analyze it and put it in its proper sort of context. But what I'm trying to say is that our failure to understand the truth has led to this state. And if we were to open up to the truth, that the present is the absolute reality, and Mahdiism is the general Mahdiism within us, and that we share the destiny with the rest of the humanity, we would become proactive and we could become audacious. And this is Mahdiism living in the present. Al-Hussein is moving, Salamullah alayhi, on his journey. And en route to Kufa, he is on a horse. His companions are around him. And somebody cries out, Allahu Akbar. The Imam said, indeed, Allah is grand. But what brings this exclamation, takbir, upon your tongue? He says, if I'm not mistaken, I see the trees of Kufa ahead of us. The Imam asked for somebody who knew the roads to Iraq. And he said, oh man, is that Kufa? He said, it cannot be. Kufa is at a great distance. When they focused, they realized that it was an army coming towards them drowned in armor. When Imam realized this, he stated to his own group, camp here. Imam's horses stopped. They descended. And after a little while, Hurr and his army came towards Imam Hussein. Imam saw the effects of thirst upon them. And the Imam said, open the water skins and quench their thirsts. And after you've given them water, feed their animals. A person came at the end and he said that I was thirsty, dying of thirst. And one of the sons of Imam Hussein quenched my thirst and then gave water to my horse. The Imam camped there. And then when it came to the time of Dhuhr, the Imam turned to Hurr and his army and he said, you pray your own prayers and we shall pray our own prayers. Hurr said, no, we will pray behind you. After Dhuhr, the Imam addressed the crowd and the congregation. And he said, "O people, it was at your insistence that I have advanced. If you have had a change of heart, let me be, and I shall return to my hometown or choose another place of retreat." When Imam taunted them, Hurr said, "I have no knowledge of this." Imam asked one of his servants to bring 2 sacks of letters. And Imam said to them, "Look at these letters, are they not from you?" The Kufis who had written these letters and who are now with the army of Hurr lowered their heads in embarrassment. Hurr said, "O Hussein, I am not of those who have signed any of these letters." Imam Hussein ascended his steed, and as he ascended his steed, Hurr grabbed the reins of Hussein's horse. And when he grabbed the reins of Hussein's horse, Hussein said, "May your mother weep in your sorrow." Hurr, startled by this, shocked by the statement, paused. Then he looked at Hussein and he said, "By Allah, I would have responded in the like manner to anybody else other than you. But knowing your mother being Fatima, I cannot but salute her and invoke Allah's blessings upon her." Then in order to admonish Al-Hussein, he said, "O Hussein, do not engage with these people. I have no doubt that they will put you to death." Hussein said, "O Hurr, do you frighten me with death? What blemish is there upon a youth who intends God and righteousness and goes forth in the way of God and meets his death? Sufficient as indignity it is for you that you call yourself a free man, yet your nose is rubbed in the dust of humility." When Hurr heard these words, he knew that Hussein is adamant. Hussein said, "Let me be on my way." Hurr said, "No. Either I stop you in your tracks, or I take you to Kufa and hand you over to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad." Imam said, "And in that case, I will take a different route." Hurr said, "I will not separate from you whichever route you take." They go along and they come on the banks of the Euphrates. Imam Hussein stops on the sides of Al-Qama and camps there. Hurr is in the side of Umar ibn Sa'ad. Hurr is deep in contemplation that it will not come to a battle, nor to a war. It is the night of Ashura. Hurr, fearing the worst, comes to Umar ibn Sa'ad and says, O son of Sa'ad, what shall you do tomorrow?" He said, "Hurr, fear not. They are a small band of people who are thirsty and hungry, deprived of water. You will see their heads flying, their limbs falling from their bodies, and their bodies being trampled upon by horses." When Hurr heard this, he shook to the core. He came back to his tent and slowly ascended his steed and began to move towards the camp of Al-Hussein. When another enemy commander saw Hurr, he said, "Hurr, do you wish to initiate the battle?" When Hurr heard this, his color changed. He said, "Hurr, you are afraid of hungry, thirsty people? By Allah, I have not seen you shake in awe in the way that you tremble today. Do you fear from them?" He said, "Nay, O man, I see myself between paradise and between hell. And by my life, I shall never prefer the anger and the wrath of God over the pleasure of Allah. What is it that you intend?" "I intend to seek forgiveness of Hussein and join forces with him." As Hurr was going, his brother joined him, his 2 sons joined him, and his servant joined him. Hurr went forward, but knowing full well the audacious crime that he had committed, he slowed down and he said to his brother and his sons, "Lest Hussein and Abbas feel that I come as an antagonist, let me walk to Hussein." and take humble steps towards him as somebody who seeks forgiveness. When Hussein saw Hurr from afar, the popular narration states that Hussein told Abbas and Akbar, go and receive my guest. When Akbar and Abbas advanced, Hurr said, "O Abbas, I come in peace, attack me not." He said, "Hurr, I come to receive you on behalf of Hussein." Hurr was taken to Hussein. Hurr looked deep into the eyes of Hussein. With tears pouring from his eyes, he said, "O Hussein, I come repentant to you. Do you have forgiveness in your heart for me?" Hussein embraces Hurr and he said, "O Hurr, not only I, but my Lord has forgiven you." Hurr said, "O Hussein, allow me to speak to the daughters of Prophet." Hussein said, "Be at ease." Hurr ascends his steed and comes to the tents of the daughters of Fatima. And he says, "O daughters of Fatima, O daughters of Muhammad, before you stands the greatest criminal the earth has ever seen. If only my hands were to have withered away before I grabbed the reins of Hussein's horse. If only my tongue were to have been cut before I uttered the audacious words in front of Hussein. O women of the Prophet, of the household of the Prophet, it is I for whose sake today you have been trapped between the enemies. Do you have forgiveness in your heart for me?" As he pled with them, their cries arose and filled the heavens. The description states, Hurr came to the earth and started beating his face and lamenting. Fizza came running and she said, "O Hurr, for the sake of Allah, pause and stop, for the arteries of the daughters of Fatima are being severed. They commend you and they pray for you. Go on your journey with Hussein." Hurr comes to Hussein and says, "O Hussein, allow me to bear the standard." Hussein gives him the standard of the left side of the army and makes him the commander. Hurr has a son, has two sons, but has a son Ali. He says to Ali, "O Ali, if you want to be successful on this day, go and fight. Go in front of me and fight. And die for the sake of Hussein." Hurr's son fights, comes back to Hurr, says, "O father, thirst kills me." He says, "O child, look at Hussein. Do not think of your thirst. His grandfather will quench your thirst." When Ali fell from his steed and he cried, "O father, come to my aid," Hurr did not cry. Gallantly he raised his head on the back of his horse and with pride looked towards Abbas and Habib. "Did you see how my son fought in the way of Hussein?" Then went to his son and he said, "O child, Allah bless you on behalf of an old father. You have done pride, you have given pride to your father. O child, his grandfather will soon come and quench your thirst." And his son broke into a smile. And he said, "O child, what is it that you see?" "I see Hussein's grandfather with the goblet of Kawthar, and he is quenching my thirst. And he is saying, 'O Hurr, well done.'" Hurr fights with the enemies of Hussein in a single combat later in the day. Hurr is struck upon the back of his head. He descends to the ground. When he comes to the ground, they attack him turn by turn. He cries out, "O Aba Abdullah, come to my aid." Hussein runs with Habib ibn Mawahib, comes to Hurr's body, takes Hurr's head and places it into his lap. Hurr breaks into a smile. Habib says, "O Hurr, do you see the grandfather of Hussein?" Hurr says, "No, O Habib." Habib says, "Then why this smile, O Hurr?" He says, "Because I find my head in the lap of Al-Hussein." Hurr begins to die. Hussein looks at Hurr and recites poetry, Ni'am al-Hurr, Hurr ibn Yazid al-Riyahi. The best of free men is Hurr, the son of Yazid al-Riyahi, who did not give in to the arrows and the blows, but fought gallantly for the belief that he held in his heart. Then we hear that Hurr had a wound upon his forehead. Hussein extracted a handkerchief that was prepared by his mother and tied it upon the forehead of Hurr in order to quench and in order to prevent the wound from spilling. I will say, oh Hurr, how fortunate you are that you lose your life in the lap of Al-Hussein, and the handkerchief of Fatima is tied to your forehead, which will remain upon your forehead till the day of Qiyamah. Oh Hurr, come with me to the evening of Ashura, and come and see how the chadar of Fatima is being extracted from the head of Zainab. ألا لا يقبل على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. ما تبع حسين.